Arakni Solitary Confinement makes their appearance in Outsiders, and while not quite the same as the Arakni we know from Dynasty, I would almost say this Arakni is a very great addition to the commoner format. Let's find out why as we dive into the deck tech for Arakni Solitary Confinement. Arakni Solitary Confinement has some new tricks up their sleeve, and with the addition of tons of new assassin cards coming in Outsiders, they're ready to do some real damage, as well as inflict some nasty ailments to your opponents. Arakni Solitary... never mind. I'm just going to call it Arakni 2.0. Arakni 2.0 has the ability to utilize some awesome cards from Outsiders, as well as very useful commons found in previous sets as well, including some of the new cards from the original Arakni set, Dynasty. The equipment in the deck is pretty standard for a commoner build, as we want to be able to defend ourselves both from the arcane and the physical, as well as be able to buff our attacks and make our chains go even wider than usual. Arakni's ability to allow stealth cards to gain go again if it's the first one is very important to the playstyle of this deck. With both Spider Bites available for you to open up with, you can then go ahead and play any of your stealth cards, and then play another stealth card, therefore going pretty wide as far as an assassin used to be able to go. Your stealth cards are going to be one of your biggest things that is going to be utilized here in Arakni. And of course, we're not running every single stealth card that we could find in Outsiders, but we are running the important ones. Wither, which allows us to create Frailty tokens on hit. Infect, which allows us to create Blood Rot Pox tokens on hit. Sedate, which allows us to create Inertia tokens on hit. Isolate, which allows a Dominate to go off with the Stealth. And more importantly, the card that you're going to be using the most as your starter stealth card, Prowl. Prowl allows the next attack with Stealth to get +1 this combat chain, and it itself has Stealth. So this card was pretty much made exactly for Arakni. These are your 0 for 4 cards, and more specifically, also a attack reaction for your stealth cards. We do run the Razor's Edge to give those stealth cards additional bonus attack, simply because you're going to be attacking with stealth cards pretty often. It's nice to be able to bridge that gap so that you're able to get some damage off and get those on hits from those stealth cards to go off. It's also very nice into a Dominate Isolate card, simply because you do have the Dominate ability on there, and having it come in for 6 Dominate is a lot cooler than having it come in for 3 Dominate. Virulent Touch Red is the only one we run in here. We only run this simply because we can play it from our arsenal, and we can even Snapdragon Scalers this, which is really cool. This is practically a guaranteed 4 damage unless your opponent wants to block. If they do block, they will get a Blood Rot Pox if they've blocked with something from hand. So unless they're going to use up one of their defense reactions to utilize in here, then Virulent Touch is usually going to get 4 damage off, or it's going to get 2 damage off because your opponent probably will not be able to pay for that Blood Rot Pox. We do also run 2 of the 0 cost cards from the Dynasty era of Assassins. That is simply because you can end your chain. You can play a stealth card that has Go Again, and then come in with this for 4. 4, again, is a really, really great breakpoint, and it will give your opponents either the opportunity to play out one of those defense reactions that they may be saving in their hand, or it also is an opportunity just to get 2 cards from their hand, because you do get to banish something. The Contract ability does still give you the option to create Silver, but Silver is not a main focus in here. I think the real point is just coming in for 0 for 4. Breakpoints are real nice, especially in Commoner. And then, of course, we have our 2 Go Again cards, that being Scar for a Scar and Ravenous Rabble. The good news about Arakni is that Arakni starts with 19 health, therefore meaning that if you have Scar for a Scar in your starting hand, you are able to give this Go Again immediately. Then you also have Ravenous Rabble, another card with natural Go Again, and with the amount of reds that you run in this deck, the option of it coming in for 4 is usually pretty good, but if it has to come in for only 2, it's not a big deal. 2 damage going through is better than nothing. All right, let's go ahead and play some test hands here so I can show you kind of how the deck runs. I want to give you some test hands as opposed to actually going against opponents, because I want you to kind of see what lines you'd be looking to play in most of the hands in this deck. Now, most cases you're choosing the Ironrot Helm, the Ironrot Plate, Stubby Hammers, and the Snapdragon Scalers. Stubby Hammers allows for your base 3 attack or less cards get to +1, which is really good because all of your stealth cards are in fact at 3. Then you also have the Ironrot Plate over something like a Blossom of Spring, because all of the cards in your deck cost 0. So you're not really going to need to worry too much about getting any kind of extra resources off of something. You'd rather have something to defend yourself. So let's draw 4 here and see what we get. We go ahead and draw into a Slay the Scholars red, a Wither yellow, a Virulent Touch red, and an Infect. So let's go ahead and just assume that this is, I don't know, turn 1. If you want to do turn 1 or turn 0, always you can go ahead and then play a Spider's Bite to pitch this Wither. Then you can do Spider's Bite to pitch this Infect. And then you can come in with a Slay the Scholars for 4, therefore possibly getting them to either block with 2 cards or being able to get some damage through and mill a card essentially from the top of their deck. Then you're going to actually go ahead and put this Virulent Touch face down in your arsenal, and you'll go ahead and pass. Let's see what the next one is here. We're going to go ahead and just keep that there. And then we're going to draw 4 new cards. We're going to see what we get. So, in this line, we have some pretty cool stuff, right? We've got a Razor's Edge, we've got Isolate, we've got Infect, and we've got Prowl. Now, we would like to, in theory, be able to do a lot of things here, and we still very well can. So in this case, we can always lead off with a Bite, because Bite is pretty cool. I would go ahead and pitch this Isolate for a Bite. Then you can come in with Prowl. Prowl comes in for 2, and the next attack you play gets +1 if it's stealth. So Prowl comes in for 2, costs 0 to play. Then next up, you have Infect. Infect comes in for 3, and it creates a Bloodrot Pox token under their opponent's control. They're probably going to block it due to it being an on-hit, which then, during the attack reaction step, you can go ahead and play Razor's Edge. They can respond with a defense reaction if need be, and then you can use the Snapdragon Scalers to then come in with a Virulent Touch. This is right now presenting 1, 2, 3, 6, so 9, 13 damage in the matter of 1 turn, all while attempting to create a bunch of Bloodrot Poxes on your opponent's side of the field. So lots of stuff here. If your opponent is like a ninja, or they're like a dash or something and they don't want to block, this is potentially 4 additional damage with Bloodrot Pox on top of the initial 13 that this does normally. So you're looking at 17 damage in the matter of a turn if there's no blocks. Of course, in most cases there will be blocks. You do also love to see that usually the Spider Bite ends up getting off on your opponent, which means that when they do defend with 1 or more attack action cards this turn, they do have -1 while defending. So it'll probably not block Prowl, but they'll attempt to block Infect. And when they do attempt to block Infect, they will in fact have a -1 to their attack action cards, which is just going to make it easier for us to get damage through. So that is another line that we have here. I love checking this kind of stuff out, seeing what we have. Let's go ahead and go in for another line. All right, so we have drawn into this hand, and it does seem kind of bad, if I'm going to be entirely honest. You have a Sack the Shifty, a Sack the Shifty, a Razor's Edge, and a Razor's Edge. Both of these Razor's Edge cannot interact with your Sack the Shifties. They can only react with stealth cards. So, if a hand like this is presented to you and your opponent just starts doing stuff, go ahead and just start blocking some of their stuff. You can always go ahead and save this reaction in the board down here for just in case situations. and you can just block out 9 damage because, again, luckily, most of your stuff other than Virulent Pox blocks, and your Scar for Scars and your Ravenous Rabbles, they all block for 3. A lot of your stuff in your deck blocks for 3. So being able to block out 9 of that damage, and then on your turn, you're just going to go ahead and flip this face down, put it in Arsenal, and that is an option if you have a bad hand. Now we'll move on to another line where we have Ravenous Rabble, Isolate, Wither, and Isolate. So very interesting hand. But luckily, we can go ahead and utilize a lot of really, really awesome stuff there. So again, we have this Razor's Edge in our arsenal. Now we're going to go ahead and start off by playing our Ravenous Rabble, which is going to take the top card from our deck and reveal it. It is a Slay the Scholars, so this comes in for 4 damage. So 4 damage on Ravenous Rabble. Then we go ahead and we pitch Wither to then play Spider's Bite. Spider's Bite is going to come in for 1, and if they block it, we don't get any ability off. But if they block it, they're going to either block it with a piece of their armor, or they're going to block it with a card from hand. Either or, that's a win for us. Because then after that, we can come in with an Isolate, which gets go again due to Arakni's ability, which then we can come in with another Isolate and even activate our Razor's Edge on top of it. So again, this is 4, 5, 8, and then 5. So that's 13. 13 more damage onto that. So another 13 damage line in Arakni. We also could, in this same field, if we really wanted to, activate Stubby Hammerers to make both of these +1, which would eventually lead this to an additional 2 damage onto it. It would not affect the Ravenous Rabble, simply because Ravenous Rabble comes in for 5 naturally. So it is very cool that you get these kind of lines. This is kind of what you're going to want to look for in the deck. You, of course, do run 2 Sink Belows, so Sink Belows are still an option for defending if need be. But for the most part, you're going to be going in with the Spider's Bites to attempt to bait your opponent into blocking. And then you're going to be able to come in with 2 of these stealth cards, or a stealth card and something like a Sack the Shifty, or you can come in with a Virulent Touch from Arsenal. There are plenty of things you can do in Arakni to give you a good idea as to how the deck works. So this is the Arakni Commoner deck. I hope you all enjoyed our little deck tech through this. And I really hope that if you have any idea as to how to make this deck better, let me know in the comments down below. I'd love to hear from you, and I do truly want to make sure that this is as perfected as it possibly can be. So I'm always up for testing. I'm always good for testing new things, and I really do hope that over time, this deck can become one of the best in Commoner. I personally think it's very, very good. I think it's right up there with Dash in its ability to be insanely powerful and get off a lot of damage in a single turn, especially since most of the cards in the deck are 0. I believe actually all of the cards in the deck cost 0 resources, so just keep that in mind when you're playing something like this. So thank you again. Make sure to check out our Discord in the description down below, as well as check out our Patreon and channel membership here on the channel. It always helps out a lot, and I certainly appreciate any help that we can get, but it's absolutely not necessary. I know that money is tight for a lot of people these days. But thank you so much. I hope you're having a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you all very soon. Nerd out.